One of the world's longest-running conflicts is coming to an end. After 4 decades, the Kurdistan Workers Party, or PKK, is laying down its arms, ending its fight against Turkey. The militants, designated as a terrorist organization by Turkey, the EU, and the US, begin disarming at their base in Iraq in the next hour. Our correspondent, Julia Hahn, spoke with people affected by the violence and learned about their hopes for a lasting peace.
A few photos. That's all Musheha Ülker has left of her son Zeki. He joined the PKK, a designated terror group, in 2012 when he was still a teenager. Musheha hasn't seen him since.
He said, "Mother, I'm saying goodbye to you. I'm going to the mountains of Kurdistan." I told him not to. "You're too young," I said. "Don't go." I haven't seen my son for 13 years. I want him to come back to me. I miss him very much.
Like Zeki, tens of thousands of young men and women have joined the PKK since it took up arms against Turkey in 1984 in response to political repression of the Kurdish minority. The group originally sought to establish an independent state and later shifted its focus to demanding autonomy and greater rights for Kurds. The conflict has claimed more than 40,000 lives and spilled over into neighboring Syria, Iraq and Iran, where Kurds also make up significant minorities. But in May, the PKK agreed to lay down its arms and disband in response to an appeal by its imprisoned leader, Abdullah Öcalan. Turkish President Erdogan has said a disbanding of the PKK would mark a new beginning for his country.
The complete elimination of terror and violence will open up doors to a new era in every area. Above all, in empowering the political system and enhancing democracy.
In the southeastern city of Diyarbakir, often called Turkey's unofficial Kurdish capital, many people told us that they long for peace.
We're hopeful about the new process. As the people of this region, we're hopeful. I think it has to happen.
But among Turkey's Kurds, who make up some 20% of the population, there is also widespread distrust of the government's commitment to peace.
We've seen many peace attempts. We hope this one won't be sabotaged like the others. We want peace, but we just don't trust them.
Many Turks also have doubts. Several peace efforts between Ankara and the PKK failed, most recently in 2015, leading to more hostilities and death. At this cemetery in Istanbul, Aysel Gürel mourns for her son Halil. He was a soldier in the Turkish army and killed in a PKK attack in 2017.
I hope the PKK won't betray us. If they promise peace and do the opposite, and more soldiers die, then that's worthless. But if a Turkey without terrorism is possible, if no more of our children die, then I will support my country in every way.
So far, the government hasn't made any promises about what the PKK will get in return for its disarmament, at least not publicly. It's also not clear what the peace effort will bring for Turkey's Kurdish minority. Musheha Ülker thinks her son Zeki is still with the PKK and hopes he will be allowed to come back to her.
Enough is enough. I'm heartbroken. All Kurdish mothers are. If this peace process is real, let the government issue a general amnesty. This is what we want. Our children should have a home to return to and work so they can build new lives.
Musheha doesn't know what the future holds for her and her son, but lasting peace, she says, requires more than silencing the guns.
Let's get more on this. We are joined by Ezgi Basaran, a former journalist from Istanbul, now an expert on Middle East politics at Oxford University, working on the Kurdish conflict with Turkey for almost 2 decades. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you explain the timing of the PKK's disarmament and what led its leader to make a plea for dissolution from jail?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me. So yes, this is, this is a decision made by the Kurdish movement, and this shift is not simply about pressure from Ankara. The Kurdish movement has made a strategic choice. Öcalan has been saying since 1993, Öcalan, the imprisoned leader of the PKK, that the armed struggle eventually should end over time, especially through the Kurdish movement's inclusion, the participation in the multi-party politics in the Turkish state, and most recently, its interaction with its American and European counterparts. It realized that it has recognized that it is the strongest, not on the battlefield, but in politics, actually. The Kurdish actors right now are the most secular, most resilient, and sharp political forces in the Middle East, and also in Turkey, to be honest. They are fierce negotiators. And but there are still dangers, obviously. It just converged, the Turkish state's security apparatus's vision of the Middle East, what's happening in the Middle East, has converged with how Öcalan sees the Middle East, which is mostly seeing Israel as a existential threat.
And now we know, I mean, you've used the term fierce negotiators. We know that the PKK wants to turn its military action now into a democratic one. And I'm wondering what your assessment of the potential of that might be and what it might mean concretely for Turkey's Kurdish minority and their request for more rights and greater autonomy.
Yes, disarmament is only the first step, and it is important to be clear that so far Turkish state has not done much other than allowing the imprisoned leader Öcalan to speak more freely, and they expanded his circle around him in İmralı to help facilitate this communication. That's significant, but obviously insufficient. Real peace cannot rely on one figure sending carefully curated statements from prison. So the Kurdish movement has taken a bigger risk by agreeing to disband its armed wing. What's needed now is a reciprocal step from the Turkish state, which could obviously include reopening legal and democratic channels for Kurdish politicians, ending the pressure on the DEM party and its mayorship, still confiscated by the Turkish state, and stop criminalizing the Kurdish entity. But I don't think that part is very likely at the moment, because and the Kurdish movement is very open about this. The Kurdish issue is about Turkey's democratic consolidation rather than an ethnic grievance. So you cannot resolve the Kurdish issue while simultaneously attacking the main opposition party, just dividing and conquering the opposition in Turkey, jailing a new set of politicians every week on vague charges of corruption and organized crime. So still, there's a lot to go. We just have to rely on step by step on what's going to happen. It's just democratic rights and cultural rights, and the democratic opening will not be further widened at this time because of the climate that is being led by the AKP and Erdogan, to be honest. So we need to manage the expectations, but the leaders of the Kurdish movement are very realistic on that on that front.
Ezgi, Basaran, thank you so much for joining us, for providing that insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
And DW's Julia Hahn, who filed that report, joins us now from Istanbul. Julia, how significant is today's PKK disarmament ceremony in Iraq?
Well, it's been largely a symbolic event there in the northern Iraqi mountains where the PKK is based, with thousands of fighters, according to estimates. But it is, of course, highly significant because it marks the first concrete step not only to the group's disarmament, but towards possibly ending this decades-old conflict that has caused so much pain to Turkish people, Kurdish people, that has caused economic hardship and social tensions here in the country. What we've seen today is some 20 to 30 PKK fighters handing over their weapons, rocket launchers, for example, Kalashnikov rifles. They were collected and then burned. These images are now everywhere here on Turkish television. This is just, of course, it's just the beginning. The entire disarmament process is expected to last several months. And we've heard already from a spokesperson of President Erdogan's ruling AK party who hailed the ceremony as, this is a quote, opening a historic new chapter for what he calls a terror-free Turkey. And he also urged for the whole process to proceed as quickly as possible.
Well, if that process does proceed and the PKK truly does give up its armed struggle, that would mark a sea change in the region. What led to this decision by the PKK to disarm?
Well, what we've seen today, it didn't just happen overnight, right? It's part of a process that has been going on for at least 10 months. It started with a quite surprising suggestion last year in October by President Erdogan's ultra-nationalist ally, Devlet Bahçeli, that there could be some sort of talks if the PKK disbanded. Then we had a call from their jailed leader, Abdullah Öcalan, in February. And then in May, the PKK officially said it would dissolve. And now 2 months later, we see the first arms are being handed over. We also, 2 days ago, saw a video message of Abdullah Öcalan, who spent the last 26 years in jail, who was still in jail, where he said, and let me quote him here, "I believe in the power of politics and social peace, not weapons." So he said the PKK struggle is officially over. So I think there are a number of domestic power dynamics at play here. I think President Erdogan might be hoping for a popularity boost, but there are also regional factors. The overthrow of the Assad regime in neighboring Syria. We also have Kurdish militant groups in Syria. This is a conflict that really straddles borders. So I think the political momentum for this was created by a combination of factors.
Now, the PKK says it wants to pursue its aims from here on out through peaceful democratic means. What could that mean, Julia, for Turkey's Kurdish minority and their quest for more recognition, rights, and autonomy?
Well, you know, the PKK has made several demands, including the release of their jailed leader, Abdullah Öcalan. I cannot tell you how realistic this is at this point in time. But I think what happened today is widely seen, as is the case with other peace processes as well, as a trust-building measure. And now the expectation, certainly on behalf of the Kurdish population, is that the Turkish government would take the next step. The pro-Kurdish party here in Turkey, for example, is asking and wants to see a parliamentary commission to be set up dealing with this entire larger peace process. And the Kurdish people I've been talking to, they tell me they want greater language and cultural rights. Kurdish is a distinct language, and they want to see also an end to the mass arrests of Kurdish politicians and activists. Over the past decades, thousands of people have been detained or arrested over alleged links to the PKK, a designated terror group. And now they are saying if the PKK no longer exists, this crackdown must end. As we saw the Kurdish mother there in my report, she hopes that her son, who's a fighter with the PKK, can safely return to Turkey. So lots of expectations out there, but so far we don't know officially what kind of concessions the Turkish government is willing to make. And I expect this whole process to really drag out over the next months and years, possibly.
Julia, thank you very much for your reporting. That was DW's Julia Hahn in Istanbul. Let's get more on this now from Hürcan Asli Aksoy. She is an expert on Turkey at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs here in Berlin. Thanks for being with us. So, Hürcan, what do you think? Is this the end of the PKK's armed struggle, or could the peace process still be derailed?
I hope so. I mean, this is quite a serious one, because we have seen a couple of peace initiatives before that failed, actually. But this time, both the leader, Abdullah Öcalan, and the PKK has said that they dissolved themselves and they disarmed. So today's is actually a symbolic act, but I think this time is more serious because of the regional situation.
What is the PKK getting in return for laying down its arms? Do we know at this point? Could members of the group end up being granted a general amnesty, for example?
Nobody knows what the next steps are, actually. The first precondition of the Turkish state was that the PKK has to lay down their arms, and they have done it. And today's act is kind of showing the Turkish state that they are serious about that the PKK is voluntarily transitioning from the phase of the armed conflict to the phase of a democratic politics and law. So we haven't seen any release of the detainees, like the Kurdish politicians or fighters, or we haven't seen any political reform or recognition of cultural rights. So the next steps will be that, but we are still not sure what the next steps will be of the Turkish government. But the government circles, pro-government newspapers have been reporting that President Erdogan will talk tomorrow and will have a political statement.
What about the imprisoned PKK leader, Abdullah Öcalan? He is someone who's playing a key role here, saying that this should happen, this laying down of arms. Could he end up being released from prison? And if so, what role might he play in Turkey's political future?
I mean, the PKK is demanding that he's being released, but there is the discussion that Abdullah Öcalan will stay on the island where he is staying, where he is imprisoned, but he will have kind of an office where he will have open visitors and can walk through the process, the so-called democratization or working for democratization of the process. And this is also my guess that he will stay there in the prison, but will have a more liberal circumstances where he can work on the political process. So I don't think that he will be released.
How do you think all of this? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And I think, it doesn't matter where he's going to stay, but I think he will play an important role, because now we see that the pro-Kurdish party, Dem Party, will play a bigger role. It used to play an important role in Turkish politics, but now its legitimacy has been grown, because now the nationalist and ultra-nationalist parties in Turkey recognize not only the existence, but the legitimacy of the party. This is a new thing, because usually the nationalist party were pretty much against the party. They were demanding that the party should be closed by the constitutional court and so. And this is the new step compared to the previous processes. And Abdullah Öcalan lead the process together with the Kurdish politicians.
And what about President Erdogan, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan? How could this affect him and his grip on power?
There are discussions about the new constitution. So, and he is kind of underlining his will to change the constitution. And this hints to be able to be re-elected as president, because this is already his second term and he cannot be a candidate for the third term unless he does the early elections. But it will restructure the political alliances, and it will also reshape the electoral and ideological landscape if the constitution changes. So one line of the discussion is that this move of the Turkish government is also that the leading party, the ruling party, remains in power. That's one of the things. But the problem is, of course, the repression is going on incrementally towards the main political opposition party, Republican People's Party. And we experts, but also people in Turkey do not know how the government will continue the process of kind of opening on the one hand towards the Kurds, but closing the political space for the opposition.
Hürcan, thank you very much for speaking with us. That was Hürcan Asli Aksoy from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs here in Berlin.
Thank you for having me online.
And for more now, I'm joined by Henri Barkey. He's a senior fellow for Middle East Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations. Mr. Barkey, it's good to have you with us. If you could give us the background to this, why is the PKK laying down its arms now?
Well, the truth is the PKK has realized that it cannot win. It has technically militarily been defeated. I mean, the PKK, which used to have lots of fighters in Turkey, is now stuck, if you want, in the mountains of Iraq. And the Turks, over the years, have created a ring around them. There's 158 Turkish military bases in northern Iraq. So it's become very difficult for them, for the PKK, to operate. So, in effect, they have, shall we say, militarily lost. But from another perspective, you can say that the PKK has also won in that it has made the Kurdish issue an important, if not the most important issue in Turkey. And it's clear that Turkey cannot move forward without resolving its conflict with the Kurds in general. Not every Kurd is a PKK member, but there's a great deal of support for the PKK. So in a way, you can say that both the state and the PKK have won, and this is an opportune time to do it.
And do we know then what will happen to all of the weapons? And will the members of the PKK, will they be granted amnesty?
Well, so tomorrow there will be a ceremony where a number of PKK fighters will give up their arms. Maybe it's 30 or 50. But once that is done, the expectation is that there will be a commission created in the Turkish parliament, which will decide what will happen to the leaders of the PKK and to the rank and file. In fact, we don't really know how many PKK fighters are out there. Turkey, I suspect the leadership will not, and it's a question of finding a refuge somewhere for the leadership. But these are not really very serious problems to resolve. The truth is there are issues that have to be resolved down the road.
Well, this really is just the first step, isn't it? I mean, what can be done to repair broken ties between the Turkish state and the Kurdish minority?
Well, the Kurdish minority has really suffered from almost from the beginning of the Turkish state in 1923, if not earlier, under the Ottomans as well. That is to say that they were never recognized as a minority. The Kurds are 20% of the population. They have their own language. They were mostly in the southeast of Turkey, but they have also over the years moved to Istanbul. Some people say Istanbul is the largest Kurdish city in the world. What the Kurds would want is essentially very few things. I mean, they want the democratization of Turkey that will allow them to organize, to speak Kurdish in public, to be able to write Kurdish. Because for the longest time, the Turkish state denied that Kurds even existed. They denied the Kurdish language. So this is what the Kurds want domestically. They want the freedom that any minority has in any democratic society. Unfortunately, the problem is that Turkey is going at the moment in the opposite direction. As you have seen, I'm sure your viewers have seen that the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is imprisoning just about anybody who he doesn't like and people who may challenge him in elections in the future. The mayors of the main opposition party, Republican People's Party, are being held in jail. They're being charged with all kinds of make-believe crimes, and it is all designed to essentially weaken the opposition. So it's not, Turkey is becoming more and more authoritarian, while the Kurds are saying we want more democracy. So it's going to be very difficult for those two issues to be reconciled. I don't know how this is going to work.
Well, we will definitely be following the story. And Mr. Barkey, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights into it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.